So we're going to begin learning about the square roots and perfect squares. We talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the year, but right up here, we're going to talk about the square root and the perfect squares, and we're going to make kind of a cheat sheet. So what I want to start with is, what do you notice here? I mean, I just have the normal numbers 1 through 16 right here on this sheet. And what I want to point out is going this direction from the perfect square backwards, we're taking the square root. That's what it says. And over here, if we go from this to this, we're squaring it. So in other words, we're taking it times itself. So let's start right here to create our cheat sheet. And if we do 1, and if we do 1 times 1, or 1 squared, okay, so 1 squared equals 1 times itself, and 1 times 1 is just 1. So in other words, the number 1 is a perfect square. If we take the square root of this perfect square, we go back to 1. So we just have the same number. It's not very self-explanatory when we talk about just the number 1. However, when we go to our next integer of 2, and we do 2 squared, okay, or 2 times 2, that equals 4. Okay, so 4 is our next perfect square. So put it right here. So 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, and then 3 squared is 9. 4 squared would be 4 times 4, or 16, and so on. So pause this video. If you have to, use a calculator and complete this table. Then when you turn the video back on, compare your table to my table. Okay, now you should have your chart filled out. Please compare it to mine. So now you have a list of at least the first 16 perfect squares. So in other words, if you were to see the number 121 and you were asked to take the square root of 121, you could look up here on your chart and know that the square root of 121, or the number times itself that gives you 121, is 11. Because 11 times 11 is 121. So now we're going to use our cheat sheet up here to what we call estimate some radicals. Okay, so without using a calculator, we're going to determine which two integers, or which two whole numbers, each of the following radicals falls between. So the square root of 50. So let's go up here to our perfect squares and find where 50 falls between. Okay, so 50 would fall right here between 49 and 64, correct? So we would say right here it falls between 49 and 64. So if I were going to take the square root of 50, which that's what this asks for, I know the square root of 49 is 7, and the square root of 64 is 8. So I know that the square root of 50 is between 7 and 8. So technically, what I should have here is 7 and 8, because 50 fell between the perfect squares 49 and 64. So the square root of 50 is between 7 and 8. So now pause the video and find the two integers that the square root of 130 would fall between. And then you can start the video and see if you're right. Okay, so the integers that the square root of 130 falls between is 11 and 12, because 11 times 11 is 121, and 12 times 12 is 144. So the square root of 130 is somewhere between 11 and 12, some random decimal that never ends and never repeats, because this is irrational. So far both of these are irrational. They fall between two whole numbers, and they're a never-ending, never-repeating decimal. Okay, so pause the video and do problems 3 and 4, and then check your work to the video. And then you'll do the bottom half on your own.